want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast, presented by FanDuel. I was wondering what was missing, and I had no idea that I didn't put my mic towards me. I was like, man, something's missing, something's off. Glad I noticed that, with first couple of seconds into this podcast. But welcome back. We're gonna get into our quarter notes, box score. Answer any questions you guys have. I do see some comments that I will be reacting to after this, from done kind of going over everything like we usually do. But let's get into it. Last regular season post-game podcast of the year. So no Jalen Duren to start this game, you guys. Obviously, they were just resting him, kind of knee injury. It's just kind of like load management this time. Paul Reed was able to get the start, and man, Paul Reed was just on one. Had a perfect night from the field. He was really active. And something with the Pacers that I noticed right away is they do not protect the paint. I know Jay Huff was blocking shots, but it was just like a layup line. It felt like very early on into this game. And the Pacers just really didn't have an answer for it whatsoever. And the Pistons were able to play fast from a lot of the Pacers misses within a couple of minutes of this game. They're already down 15. It was 35-20. And they just really did not have an answer for the Detroit Pistons. In this first quarter, they dropped 41 on them. So after one, it was 41-27. Now, granted, I know the Pacers are extremely injured. There was no Siakam. Probably the only player that I could actually name on that roster today was Jay Huff and Obi Toppin, who Obi Toppin was just going crazy from three. But kind of going into the second quarter, Pacers did a good job in transition, pushing the pace and making the threes, because they did make quite a bit of threes. Pistons didn't really crash the defensive glass. The Pacers were able to kind of out-hustle them with some rebounds, and the Pacers got within 5, believe it or not. With the bench unit out there, JB decides, I'm going to put the starters back into this game, and within a couple of minutes, the Pistons go on an 11-0 run. And Cade was just a complete maestro tonight. He had 10 assists by this second quarter. Had a high assist game in this one. He wasn't really looking to score too much. He was just looking to set up his teammates. But the Pistons dropped 81 points at halftime. First time in over 30 years that I guess this has happened. It was 81-63, and they shot 70% from the field, because they had such a great second quarter once the starters came in with around 5.5 minutes to go. But dropping 81 points at halftime is just crazy. Again, I know the Pacers were extremely injured. They had a really down year, now not having Tyrese Halliburton and other injuries with the role players. But coming out of halftime, Pacers had to take a timeout because the Pistons were up 90-66, and it looks like the Pistons were trying to put this game away. Starters came out, and the bench unit were putting points up on the board for a little bit. Obviously, the Pacers, kept making threes. They kept kind of make it within, 16 to a 15-point game. Isaiah Stewart and Jay Huff got into it. They were kind of just at each other all night. It was a very physical battle down low in the middle for both of those guys. Jay Huff kind of just threw his arm towards Stu's throat, and then they both got double text just for the altercation. Their arms kind of got entangled, but nothing really came of it until the fourth quarter, which we'll talk about. But after three, the Pistons were up 108-89. Going into the fourth, Jalen Slauson, who is a two-way player for the Indiana Pacers, decided, I'm going to blindside hit Isaiah Stewart in the back area, and he got ejected from the game. I don't really know what the point of that was, if he was just sticking up for Jay Huff because he didn't like the way that Stu and him were battling down low, and they were kind of just all night, both Stu and Jay Huff were elbowing each other in the back or the rib cage area. They were just, playing center the way it's intended to be playing. You're getting rebounds, you're setting screens. It's like that. It's a very hard position to play. I don't really understand why he thought it was necessary to kind of have a reckless play that could have been a lot worse. Anytime you do kind of get hit in the back of the neck area, it can kind of be dangerous. And that's why he did get ejected. Flagrant 2. Don't know if his teammate's going to be picking up that fine, because those are pretty pricey. But the Pacers did a better job of executing after that ejection. Seems like they kind of got some juice and energy from that, and they trimmed the Pistons' lead um, down to 9 points at one point. But JB decided, I'm just gonna let these G League guys get some reps. So you had guys out there like Chaz Lanier, Isaac Jones, Tolu Smith, and then some rotational players of Marcus Sasser and Ron Holland. But they were able to close the game and not have the Pacers play spoiler. Final score 133 to 121. I will give the Pacers credit. They didn't quit and they kept fighting, but Pistons get their 60th win of the season. Only third time in franchise history that has happened. So shout out to the Detroit Pistons for winning 60 games this season. I know in the summer I said 50. Like that's where I was at. I thought this was a 50-win basketball club. The fact that they won 60, I didn't see it coming, and I'll acknowledge that straight up. Like I was listening to an old podcast where I was a guest on Locked On Pistons with Kuka Hill, and we were both like, if they can finish like top 4 or top 6, we would be happy. The fact that they held the number 1 seed from November all the way to April is extremely impressive. And it's kind of funny, like we held the 1 seed for that long, and I felt like I heard more teams mentioned, like the New Yorks, the Clevelands, Orlando's, and Atlanta's more than I heard that the Pistons. Like the Pistons were in first, and they like didn't bat an eye like all season. They were waiting for us to slip. They were waiting for someone else to overtake the 1 seed, but nobody did. So Detroit versus everybody, I guess. But do want to kind of get into the box score, and then we'll open up the show to Q&A, comments, and questions. You guys have any comments or questions or just overall thoughts with this season, leave them down below in the comment section, and then we'll get to your guys' comments when we're done going over the box score and the team stats. So let's get into the box score with this one tonight. Tobias Harris, 22 minutes, very efficient game by him. 24 points, 9 out of 12 from the field, 4 for 4 from 3, perfect from the free throw line where he went there once, 2 out of 2, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals, plus 30 for Tobias Harris. Him and Cade Cunningham led the team in plus minus tonight. Duncan Robinson in 22 minutes had 9 points. He was 4 out of 5 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover. He was a plus 28. Paul Reed, MVP tonight, in my opinion, because this look at the stat line, you guys. Listen to this. 22 minutes, 26 points, 11 out of 11 from the field, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, plus 28. Pretty sure I read somewhere like that's the I believe Pistons Muse had the stat. I don't want to say it incorrectly. I'll have to look it up after I'm done with the podcast, but I know Paul Reed broke some kind of Detroit Pistons record, but 26 points on perfect from the field and the free throw line. Like that is insane. It is crazy. Shout out to B-Ball Paul. I mean, best third string center in the league. Like it's insane that you're able to have a guy like him on your bench start or fill in a backup capacity, and he has a perfect game like that. Like shout out to him. So happy he's under contract for next season. So happy. Thank you, Trajan Langdon. Thank you to the Detroit Pistons, because Paul Reed is very valuable on this basketball team. Cade Cunningham, 22 minutes, at 7 points, did struggle to shoot from the field. He was 3 for 12 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, 8 rebounds, 14 assists, though. Did have 4 turnovers. He was a plus 30. Hopefully Cade is just, shaking off that rust. Obviously not playing basketball for quite some time, probably didn't help his cause whatsoever. But I am hopeful that he can, kind of get back to shooting better. Because I know, like, when we were talking, oops, I did not mean to do that. I don't know why I did that. Hold on. I know when we were talking kind of just like in the beginning of the season with Cade, and kind of just like his 3-point shot and just his shooting in general, we were hoping that like Cade could kind of get back into like that form in terms of just like getting better from three, because if you looked at last year to this year, his 3-point percentage wasn't the best, but he was able to still kind of get into like rhythm in form with everything like that. But let's kind of get into the next player, Asar Thompson. So in 22 minutes, Asar dropped, let's see, 7 points. He was 3 out of 4 from the field, 1 for 2 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, 1 block. He was a plus 28 in this one. So like to see that by Asar Thompson. Obviously, I think all the starters really outside of Cade had a pretty good game from the field, but we'll give Cade a pass just because only third game back from that collapsed lung, and I'm sure he's still kind of conditioning himself and kind of getting back into form. So we'll kind of just give Cade like a light pass there, right? So want him to kind of get back into like the form he was before the collapse lung, because his 3-point shot was like falling like crazy, if you guys remember. Tolu Smith, garbage time off the bench, 6 points, 5 minutes, excuse me. 1 for 2 from the field, 3 out of 4 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. He was a -4. Obviously, Pistons did convert his two-way contract from a standard contract, so he'll be like the 4th big off the bench, just in case. You never really know, foul trouble, or don't want to have injuries in the playoffs. Knock on wood that there are no injuries, but you never know. That's why they picked him up and converted his contract. Isaiah Stewart in 17 minutes had a pretty good game, 16 points. He was 7 out of 9 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, 1 for 2 from the free throw line. Also had 5 rebounds, 2 turnovers, and 1 block shot. He was a -9 in the plus-minus. Ryan Holland in 20 minutes scored 3 points. He was 1 out of 5 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, and 1 block shot. He was a -12. Isaac Jones in 10 minutes scored 2 points. Again, garbage time for Isaac Jones because JB was just kind of leaving out those G League guys in the 4th. Javonte Green in 12 minutes of action scored 6 points. He was 2 out of 3 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, is a -9. Karis LeVert in 14 minutes had 6 points. He was only 1 for 3 from the field, 1 for 1 from 3, 3 out of 4 from the free throw line with him, -9 as well. Kevin Huerter in 20 minutes had 15 points. He was 5 out of 10 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3, 2 for 2 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He was a -12. I think JB, come playoff time, he might rely on Kevin Huerter a little bit more than Kevin, or from, I was going to call him Kevin LeVert, Karis LeVert. It's because he's been very productive, and I feel like he's getting more and more comfortable each game he does play with the Pistons, especially being one of the first players off the bench. I think that's a very telling sign with like what could happen with these playoff rotations. Marcus Sasser played in the 4th quarter, 7 minutes, hit 1 big 3-pointer to kind of put the Pistons back within a 10-point lead. He was 1 out of 4 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. Didn't really do anything else except score those points. Jazz Lanier in 6 minutes had a little floater. He had 1 turnover, -4. And then Danish Jenkins in 19 minutes only scored 2 points, 1 for 7 from the field, all for 1 from 3, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 turnovers, was a -17. Danis has struggled quite a bit, I will say. I just don't really know like what's going on with Danis right now. I just don't, you guys. I think it's just a situation where he is trying to figure out where he can be effective. And I think it's a thing where with him, he's got to find a way where he can still have the production that he was having when Cade was out. I think right now it's just a situation with Danis where he's trying to find kind of like that even ground. For me, I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive and looking for his shot early versus setting up his teammates. I know that's easier said than done, but just from what I've been watching since he's kind of been back on the bench in the second unit, I think that's what I've noticed with him. Hopefully he can figure it out in the playoffs and kind of have that production that he was having when he was in the starting lineup. But overall, really good game. You win 60, your 60th game of the season. Only lost 22 times, but I do want to get into the comment section. I'm actually reading the comment. Excuse me. But let's kind of get into the Q&A. I'm just kind of reading just all the comments right now, but let's kind of get into it. So we'll get into Marquez first. 60, amazing accomplishment. Now it's playoff time. Go Pistons. I agree. 60 is a great accomplishment for this team. I think a lot of the players are ready for playoffs. I know when Cade was getting interviewed by Johnny Kane, he said, yeah, we're just ready for playoffs. Like 60 is a great accomplishment, but we haven't done anything yet. He said that last post game when he was talking with the media, but I agree with him. Like, I think if you win 60 games and you don't do anything, like if you get bounced in the first round, I'm not saying they will, but like I think a lot of people won't remember the 60 wins as much. I expect the Pistons get out of the first round, but I'm just saying in general, if you don't do anything, I think a lot of Pistons fans will be like, yeah, we didn't really do anything. Wondering what the dog doing. Shout out to him. Yes, sir. That's 60 in the books, loading the playoffs. It feels great to be a Piston fan. I agree, man. It does. It's a lot easier to be a fan of a team when they're winning games. Now, mind you, we were still doing podcasts during the 14-win season a couple seasons ago. We were still doing these post-game podcasts, answer you guys' questions. Kind of felt like a therapy session once a week when we're doing our long form podcast. Kind of felt like a therapy session when we were doing our post game podcast because we were just so frustrated that we were losing the games and how we were losing the games. But like just the turnaround that this team and this organization has done in the past 2 years is incredible. It really is. I do want to read your comment about George Blaha because this was actually during the altercation with Isaiah Stewart and the two-way guy that got ejected from the game. So Blaha says bigger fish to fry, excuse me, than some random backup from the Indiana Pacers. George has just been emptying the clip all this season, man. I know he roasted the Washington Wizards when they were laughing, saying, I don't know what they're laughing at. Like, they've been a joke for the past couple of years. He's just been on one. I don't know if this is going to be his last season. I really don't. That was his 50th year of broadcasting. I don't know what's going to happen with who's going to be carrying the Pistons next year. I don't know if you guys have seen, but FanDuel isn't going to be the broadcast partner for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, Chris Ilitch kind of moved the Red Wings and the Tigers on his new Detroit sports network. I don't know if the Pistons are going to hop on that for a year because the NBA has kind of told teams if you do decide to make your broadcast either local or you want to sign up with a streaming service like YouTube TV or whatever it may be, try to do it for a year or have an opt-out clause because what the NBA wants to do eventually is have their own streaming service like League Pass, but actually not have any blackouts. Like if you guys have League Pass right now, you have to wait a good 72 hours to watch the game if it is blacked out in certain regions. What the NBA wants to do eventually is just have a streaming platform where there are no blackouts, and that is supposed to, I guess, launch in 2027, 28. I guess there's still a lot of things that they're trying to work out, but don't know who's going to be picking up the Detroit Pistons next year. I don't know if that was George's last year. I hope it's not because I do really enjoy him calling the games. Like I do enjoy like a lot of people that work down there. I'm friends with a couple of them. They're really great people that I've got to know over the years. But did want to give a little shout out to George and the whole FanDuel crew. Shout out to them. Did I see the Knicks and Hawks for the 3-6 matchup? We can talk about that because I think that's a very intriguing matchup. The Atlanta Hawks to me are probably one of my dark horse playoff teams. And we'll probably talk about playoffs a little bit more in depth later next week. We're going to be having a couple of guests on next week to give you guys some Detroit Pistons podcasts and some content. I will say this. It would not surprise me if the Hawks upset the Knicks. It just really wouldn't. Not to say that the Knicks couldn't, advance, but the way that the Hawks are kind of constructed, you have Jalen Johnson, who's a point forward. You have a great defender in Dyson Daniels. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, um, I think could give the Knicks a lot of problems. Don't really know who they would throw onto him because it's not going to be Jalen Brunson. They'll probably do Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. Um, would not surprise me if that series went 6 or 7 games. Hawks are a very good team ever since the trade deadline, and they've upgraded their roster. They've got more athletic, more long. I mean, we just saw them recently in an overtime game, but we only lost by 1. Like, they can get points up on the board and they can hit threes at a really high clip. That Hawks-Knicks series is going to be a really good series, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Hawks did play spoiler and kind of bounce the Knicks out of the first round. It really wouldn't. Piston Fan 11, any guess how close Cade is being able to put up 40 points and carry the load when we need it yet? Or does he need a little bit more time back? I'm not sure when Cade Cunningham is going to be healthy enough to drop 40. He's out there right now. I think these past 3 games this week is just conditioning for him. Obviously, he didn't play because it was a blowout, but the game previous, he played 28 minutes. I don't remember what he played in the Milwaukee game, but I think next week it's just going to be conditioning and them getting ready for the playoffs and seeing who they are going to be playing in the first round. But I'm sure they'll probably get Monday off and maybe Tuesday. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it'll just be more time for him to kind of ramp up his conditioning and see where he's at. I don't know when he's going to be able to drop 40. He might just go crazy like he did last year in the playoffs where he had a big performance against the Knicks in one of the games. But I'm not entirely sure when he's going to be able to drop 40 again. If he drops 40, cool. If he doesn't, if he gives you a good like 20 and 10 and Pistons are winning these playoff games, I really don't care how much he averages. I really don't, because I think for me as a Piston fan, I just want to get out of the first round. I want to get that monkey off our back because we haven't won a playoff series since I believe 2008. That would have been against the Boston Celtics. And that's quite a long time. We're in 2026. I'd like to get that because we won our first playoff game. Let's try to win a playoff series. And I think we have a good opportunity to do that, whoever we do play in the first round. We will get swept by the Heat. This comes from Kevin Kruger. The Heat are a team that I would be a little bit concerned about, Kevin, but I don't know what has kind of happened to them. Ever since Bam dropped 83, they just really haven't been the same team. But you never want to count out Miami, especially in the playoffs. They have players that I think the Pistons can match up with pretty well. The only thing that concerns me with them is their pace. The Pistons, even tonight, like a team like Indiana, that's not a playoff team. Like when they were running up and down the court and getting 3-point opportunities, Miami does that at the same level. And they have shooters like Norm Powell and Tyler Hero. Bam is a very good center that likes to play out of the dribble handoff, much like Jalen Duren does. But I think if they play the Heat, I don't think they get swept. I think it would be a very competitive series, but they're one team that I would worry about. I worry about Orlando too, just because of the defenders that they do have. But I don't really think that the Pistons are going to get swept in the first round. Just the way that they're playing and the way that they can lock in, they've shown us this year that they're able to lock in. Like coming out of third quarters, if they can do that for a full 48, like they'll be fine. It's just trying to get that consistency level, but I'm sure JB will have them very motivated to do that. Let's kind of get into some more comments and questions with you guys. Between the Raptors and Cavs and Hawks and Knicks, I think one of those series is an upset. Motor City Ben Diesel. I agree. Raptors and Cavs is going to be an interesting one. Cavs, I want to see like what happens with the Donovan Mitchell and a James Harden-led backcourt against a team in the Toronto Raptors that have just as much talented isolation scorers on their roster. like an RJ Barrett, like a Brandon Ingram, who we've seen when he's on, he's on. Like he can get you 30 in his sleep. They have bigs like Yoka Pirtle who can kind of match physicality with Karl Anthony Towns. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between the Raptors and Cavs. Hawks and Knicks, we talked about a little while ago. Would not surprise me if the Hawks did play spoiler because they've been playing really good basketball. Get to a couple of more questions. Did we talk last episode of the Pistons walking off with no handshake with the Hornets? We touched on it. I kind of like that from Jalen Duren telling JB Bickerstaff not to shake their hands with Charles Lee. But like, here's my thing on that, Piston Fan 11. What kind of happened in February? Why would you want to shake hands and dap up with players that were trying to fight you? Like, I know I wouldn't. Like, if someone like tried to punch me or, push it around and like talking like crazy disrespectful, like, I'm not going to shake your hand. I'm just not. I'm sorry. You can tell both of those teams don't like each other whatsoever. And I kind of like it. It kind of gives you kind of like a throwback, old school, like, 1980s, late 90s type of vibe with the Pistons and Hornets. That very well could be a first round matchup, Pistons Hornets, which I think a lot of people nationally want that to happen. They want Pistons Hornets in the first round. And I can understand why, because both of the teams play extremely hard and they don't like each other and they talk a bunch of smack during the game. Donald, what is the realistic expectation for this team in the playoffs? I think they have to win 2 first rounds and possibly the second round. My expectation for them is to get out of the first round. I think depending on, the first round situations, I think this team could make the Eastern Conference Finals, and that might sound like a hot take. But I think they have the talent to do so. I think they've shown this year defensively they can be one of the best teams in the NBA. They're shooting much better from 3, by the way, too. The last month of the season, they've been a top 10 3-point shooting team, you guys. Now, before that, they were ranked 22nd in the league from 3. But the additions to Kevin Huerter, Javonte Green has been hitting more of his threes. Ryan Holland's been hitting more of his threes. Duncan Robinson has just been on an absolute heater the past 12 games of the season. If this team is, ranked 6th in the last month of the season, and they're making threes like they are in the playoffs, yeah, this team's going to be really dangerous come playoff time. I would not surprise me if you got like Boston, Detroit, Eastern Conference Finals. It would not surprise me whatsoever. Or, you have Detroit, maybe Knicks, Eastern Conference Finals. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. But I think that's my expectation. That's a realistic expectation I have for this team. Now, if it doesn't happen, but they win a first round series and they get bounced in the second, will I be disappointed a little bit? Yes, but that is progress because you didn't make it out of the first round last year. But I think a lot of fans right now, their expectations is Eastern Conference Finals or bust just because of the seasons that they've had. They've held on to the number 1 seed from November to April. I think a lot of people are expecting an ECF by this team. Really hope the Pistons join Detroit Sports Network with Chris Ellis. It comes from Maddie Fresh. Shout out to Maddie. That'll be interesting, Maddie. I'm not really sure if they will or not, just because the way I look at it is this: like, obviously, the reason why Illich decided to start his own streaming service is because he owns the Red Wings and the Tigers, right? And he's going to be getting the revenue from that. I don't know if he's going to do Tom Gorge another favor and like have the Pistons on DSN. And what I mean by favor is like the Pistons kind of just said, hey, like, you guys are moving downtown at LCA. Can we hop on? Like, can we have our arena? Can we share an arena with you? Don't know if Illich would want the Pistons on his network just because he's very particular. Even in the arena, like, if you guys notice, there's a bunch of statues with Red Wings players. There's no statues of Detroit Pistons players. And that's for a reason, because Illich wants that arena just to be Red Wings. He doesn't want Piston statues in it. That's why there's no Isaiah Thomas statue. So if he's going to act like that with the statue, I don't know how he would act with the Pistons trying to join his network. I just don't. Tom Gores could just pull a Matt Ishbia and say, hey, TV20 Detroit, let's just make it free for a year for all the fans. Like, let's do that. Like, I don't know. I feel like Tom Gores can afford that because he's a very wealthy man. But that's my dream. TV20 Detroit would be awesome for all the fans that don't get to watch games because of like the FanDuel restrictions. Bringing it back for local TV for a year would actually be kind of cool. But I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the Detroit Pistons and the streaming stuff. But I'd be very surprised if the Pistons were on DSN with Chris Illich, and considering kind of just like I don't want to say his attitude, but this kind of like the stuff you hear why the Pistons don't have, statues in that arena. Look, I could only imagine like, stuff like that. Hey man, it's been a minute. We are back. Go Pistons. This comes from Doc703. Shout out to you, Doc. Yeah, it has been a minute. The last time the Pistons won 60 games, I was in middle school. I am 34. So yeah, it has been quite a minute. 100%. I really hope that the Pistons can continue to have success, but I've been so impressed with the past two seasons with JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon. Like, you go win your first year, you win 44 games. This year, you win 60 games. I do want to say this because I keep seeing coach of the year conversations. Okay. In no way, shape, or form do you win 60 games and not win coach of the year. Okay. You just don't. I keep seeing this Joe Mazzulla push because he didn't have Tatum and they're in the second seed, and we got to reward that. Let's just kind of, play revisionist history. Kenny Atkinson won coach of the year because the Cavs were the number one seed and they won a high amount of games. Don't flip the narrative just because you want to be different and you want to give it to Boston. Joe Mazzulla has said himself, it's a stupid award. I don't care. He doesn't want the coach of the year award. I think JB Bickerstaff deserves it. He deserves it. I mean, I felt like he got robbed last year. I mean, tripling a team's win total from 14 to 44. Obviously, he did get some, second place, third place votes for coach of the year. I think he deserves it this year. I really do. I think there are some Pistons that are going to be in NBA awards. It'll be interesting to see what does happen with Cade Cunningham's case, if they do appeal, if they will make an exception for Cade to be eligible for All NBA, be eligible to get, some MVP votes. Not saying Cade's going to win it, but he could get some MVP votes. I do think that a lot of the Detroit Pistons will be in awards. I know Isaiah Stewart won't be eligible as well because he didn't play the minutes or the games. Asar Thompson will be eligible though. I do see Asar Thompson making all defensive team. I think it should be first team, just what he's done. He's been incredible, led the NBA in steals this season, and just how versatile he is. I know when he was injured and when he was out, we really saw like what he does provide and what he does bring on a night-to-night basis. He might not score a lot of points right now, but like what he brings on a defensive end of the side of the ball, like it's incredible. I think he should get rewarded for making an all-defensive team. I mean, Jalen Duren has been neck and neck and most improved awards as well. I think a lot of people might lean towards Nickeil Alexander-Walker just because what he's doing, but it's not really surprising to me. You saw flashes with Nickeil Alexander-Walker in Minnesota when he was coming off the bench for them, but Jalen Duren upped his scoring, 19 and a half points a game. If you would have told me that, I would have said, he must have been shooting jump shots, but averaging 19 and a half a game with just dribble drives and getting to the free throw line is extremely impressive for Jalen Duren. But it's a little rant I wanted to go on. I just see this coach of the year nonsense with Joe Mazzulla, him being the odds on favorite, or him being in call sheet prediction markets of he's about to be the coach of the year, JB, is going to be in second. I just think it's ridiculous. I really do. But I do want to wrap up this podcast with you. Now, in terms of playoff podcasts, we are still going to be doing podcasts. I'm just considering whether we want to do kind of like a watch party during the game. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if I'm going to get invited out. I did get invited out last year where the Pistons did do watch parties at um, places like Gillies down in Detroit. I don't really know if they're going to do, watch parties for away games. So I'm going to try to do post-game podcast for these playoff games. It's kind of TBD. I'll let you guys know, but I know for next week we did confirm with the guest on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the season. We're going to be talking about playoff matchups. We should know by then who the Pistons are going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs, but did want to update you guys on that. But okay, we'll do one more. Before you go, quick thoughts on the draft pick. I can answer that. So they get the 21st pick in the draft. If you guys don't know, that Jaden Ivey trade with the Timberwolves and the Pistons swapped draft picks with the Timberwolves. So they'll be picking 21st overall. What I think of it is two things. I think either the Pistons will stay there at 21 and get a quality player, whether that's a power forward, whether that's a guard. There is a lot of options out there for the Detroit Pistons. I don't know what position they're going to go with. It really depends on how the draft board kind of, falls for them. But, I wouldn't be opposed if the Detroit Pistons wanted to draft a guy like a Cameron Carr out of Baylor, who's a really nice two guard. I mean, there are some pretty good power forwards in this draft class. I know so many Pistons fans right now are just screaming, yo, let's go get Yaxel Lendenberg. Let's go get him. Let's go get him. I think if you want Yaxel, you guys, you're going to have to trade up in the draft. Now, I think Yaxel, when you look at the power forward position, he's an older prospect. I could give a crap about that. I think Yaxel makes a whole lot of sense for this team. I think it would be a very good Tobias Harris replacement. Now, that depends if Tobias Harris actually, goes somewhere else in free agency. Their team like the Lakers that might want him, but Tobias might want to retire a Piston. Maybe you kind of have Tobias off the bench as he does get older. I think Yaxel does make a whole lot of sense for the power forward position. Yax to me would be a dream. It would. You said it perfectly in the live chat right now. Yax does make sense, but you're going to have to trade up for him. He's a lottery pick, in my personal opinion. I could see him going anywhere from 10 to 14 in that range. But I do think there are some other power forwards in this draft. I just really do like Cameron Carr quite a bit. Just considering like when you kind of look at the Pistons two guard situation, like you have Duncan Robinson under contract. Now his contract is non-guaranteed, so you could actually get rid of him if you wanted to. But I'm under the assumption the Pistons don't want to, just for how he's played this season and just being such a good, consistent 3-point shooter. But I mean, there's some other guys out there. One of the other power forwards that I really liked out of Florida is Thomas Howe. Very athletic, bouncy power forward, can shoot the occasional three, but he might be lottery bound as well. There's just so many great power forwards in this draft class, and it gets me excited. But what I do want to kind of update you guys as well is we're going to be doing draft coverage too. We're going to be doing NBA draft content. I am going to reach out to Bryce Simon, as you guys know, does the Pistons Pulse podcast with Amari. Great podcast. I have to go check those guys out. But I'm going to have him on this podcast this spring and this summer. I'm going to be talking to him a lot with NBA draft coverage. I've reached out to some other NBA draft analysts as well because I want to go all in on this draft because I think it's a very strong and intriguing draft. There's some kids that might go top 5 in this draft that I actually covered when I was doing high school sports. So it's actually kind of cool. But the draft should be very interesting. That's months away. We're in April. We'll try to focus on playoff basketball, but I did want to answer one more question before we do kind of wrap up this podcast, Doc, but I do appreciate your question. But again, you guys, we will see you on Wednesday. That's when we'll be doing our next podcast with a special guest. I can't wait for you guys to see who it is. But until next time, you guys, hope you guys have a great night, great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.